So you've finally taken the plunge, you've finally decided to manage in Scotland on FM22, but don't you worry, I'm here to talk you through it. Let's get into it. So, today's video we are going to run down everything that you need to know about Scottish football before loading up FM22 and firing in and going into the wacky world of Scottish football with all its different quirks and whatever you want to call it. But before we get into that, guys, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button for more FM22 content. If you're new to the channel, I have got a Celtic save that's currently ongoing throughout the beta of FM22, which you can still get access to, by the way. So make sure you have a look at that. But today's video is more importantly about the overall Scottish pyramid. So let's have a look and see what you guys need to know. So the first thing you really need to know when stepping into any country to manage is how the league structure works. So in Scotland, there are 4 leagues that are playable on FM22. There are more leagues available, but they are locked at the start of the game, so it requires mods to actually play them. Those mods do get made as the year goes on. Once the editor's out, usually quite quickly you get a Scottish full pyramid mod that comes out, and again, that's something that's always interesting. It's always exciting to start your saves at a really low level in Scotland, where it is, semi-pro, mainly amateur clubs. So that can always get exciting, but as it stands, 4 leagues you need to know about. So before we go into more detail, you have the Scottish Premiership. That's top league. You then have the Championship, League 1 and League 2. So again, much kind of like the English structure in terms of the league names anyway. So pretty straightforward. Let's have a bit of a deep dive at the leagues and what sort of saves you could be looking at. So we have a quick look at the rules of the league here on FM22. One of the quirks of Scottish football is the fact that there's a split at the end of the season. It's not something that a lot of leagues necessarily have, however it does make things a little bit interesting when it comes to those qualification places and potential relegation. So essentially, the league, after 33 games, the league splits in 2. So top 6 all play each other once, bottom 6 all play each other once, and that's how the season ends. So when you're coming up to that 33 game sort of mark, you're wanting to make sure you're in that top 6, otherwise you can kind of get trapped. Doesn't matter if you get more points than the team in 6th, you will still be at 7th at the maximum if you finish in that bottom half of the table. So it's quite an interesting one, it's quite an interesting quirk, and it makes the end of the season a bit more challenging, especially if you're finishing in the top 6. You're playing the big boys, you're playing the teams who have done well throughout the season, so it makes things a little bit more interesting, and especially when it comes to the relegation battles, they're not playing the big teams, they're playing teams that also struggled that season, so it does get very competitive down there, or at least that's the way it's meant to be. So if we have a look at the prize money and the sort of qualification places in the league, so you kind of know what you're playing for when it comes to sort of FM22 in Scotland. So league works as such. So first place in the league gets a Champions League playoff slot, so that takes you straight off into one game and you're into the Champions League group stage essentially. This will probably change as the game goes on. Obviously, as the league gets better, you get more coefficient points, then the country as a whole gets more qualification points. As far as more in real life, it's likely that it's going to be an actual full-blown Champions League group stage slot for the winner of the Champions League. For the winner of the league, what am I talking about, Champions League that season. So that is, again, something to be wary of. But again, you win the league, you get Champions League playoffs. You also get not a massive chunk of change in 3.35 million. That's the one thing with Scottish football. There's not as much money in it as the English leagues. However, you still can get qualification into the big tournaments in Europe. So it is quite interesting. Second place again gets a Champions League second qualifying round tie this time in 2.4 million. So a bit of a drop down there. Third, you're getting your Europa League playoff, but this is only subject to what happens with the Scottish Cup. So the Scottish Cup winner gets the Europa League slot. If that winner has already qualified for the Champions League, then that goes straight down into third place in the league. So it can be all to play for near the end of the season, especially if you see that Rangers and Celtic are going into a final and they're the top two in the league, so it can get quite interesting there. You've then got Europa Conference League, so that makes up 4th and 5th. Again, should the Europa League playoff slot go to the Scottish Cup, then this just jumps up one, so for 3rd and 4th, get this, depending on who wins the Scottish Cup. 9 times out of 10, the winner of the Scottish Cup is going to be in that sort of top half of the league anyway, so it's not going to make too much of a difference, but it's something to be wary of as well. You're not guaranteed Europa League from the actual Scottish League, which is quite interesting. Means that you have got to win that cup competition or finish top 2 to get anything above the Conference League, which, you know, it makes things quite unique. So we've spoken about the good things, but let's talk about the bad. So if you finish 12th, that's you're relegated. No if, buts or maybes, you're done. However, if you finish 11th, you then go into a playoff. So you go straight into the playoff final. When we get on to the Championship in a second, that'll become a bit more clearer, but essentially you play the winner of the Championship playoffs and you actually play for your right to stay in the league. So it's quite interesting to see how that works and that dynamic, especially if a team's been flying in the Championship and you've been struggling. That can be a unique sort of way to look at it. So all the general competition rules and things like that are what you'd really expect from any league. So if we have a quick look at the teams that are in the Scottish Premiership for your first season on FM 22. So you have Aberdeen, Celtic, Dundee, Dundee United, Hearts, Hibs, Livingston, Motherwell, Rangers, Ross County, St Johnstone and St Mirren. So if we have a look at the season preview on the game, this will give us an idea of, you know, what you're kind of looking at in terms of challenges on the game. So you have Rangers are favourites to win the league. If we have a look at everything they've kind of got here, they're in the Champions League, they've got a really good squad, they've got a hot prospect in Nathan Patterson, who is one of the potential sort of wonder kids with Scottish football. So again, good sort of youth play there. Again, they've made some decent signings in the summer, so again, that is arguably one of the easier challenges you could take on FM22. You then got Celtic, as I said, plug for my beta save. Ultimately, this is going to be an easier challenge, depending on what you want to do. Obviously, if you want to go and win the Champions League, that's going to take you a long time. But if you want to dominate Scotland, you can do it very quickly with just making the right choices on the game. If we have a look then, the next is tied here. So we've got Hearts and Aberdeen. Hearts were promoted from the Championship last season. They struggled a couple of years ago, but they are back, and in real life they are doing very, very well. So it's not surprising to see them up there. They've got some good prospects in the team. They've got Ben Woodburn on loan from Liverpool, which I think is a big one as well. Whether they sign him going on to the game like on a permanent basis, that obviously just depends, but he is a potentially dangerous player. You've then got, you know, a quality squad kind of around them. Their hot prospect is Harry Stone. He's on loan at Park Thistle. So you then got Aberdeen. That's my team. That's the team I support. Again, quite an interesting challenge with Aberdeen. Derek McInnes is gone, Stephen Glass has came in, obviously you would then be taking over from him, but it's a bit of a rebuilding period at Aberdeen, so there's a lot kind of changes going on, trying to find a new style, a new identity. So again, interesting challenge there if you want to take it on. Again, a lot of good players at the club. For me, the big one would be Calvin Ramsey. Calvin Ramsey in real life is a really hot prospect, he looks really good. If you look at his stats already, for a 17-year-old, he looks really good. He's got decent determination as well, so I think he has got a lot of potential. So that is a good one to kind of have in your team when you're going for that challenge. Obviously for Aberdeen, the big thing is breaking up the Old Firm. That is probably the biggest challenge that Aberdeen have, and winning silverware. So again, interesting potential save for you to do there. Dundee United are having an amazing season in real life, but again, no one really thought they were going to do much this season. Again, quite similar to other teams in the league as we go down. Again, it's just a good challenge to build the team into a team that finish in the top half and challenge for those European spots, and then eventually move on to challenge for league titles and trophies and things like that. So again, from here on down, I would probably class these as quite interesting saves, apart from Hibs. Hibs, I think, should probably be a bit higher up here, but they have had a bit of a difficult start to season in real life, and that's probably reflected into their stats and things like that here. But they've got a decent team. They've got people like Kevin Nisbet up front. He's got 16 finishing on the game, so again, that's a quality player to have in your ranks. There you've obviously got Martin Boyle as well, who's a quality player. So again, there's some good strength in that squad. So again, that's something to keep in mind. Like I said, there's not really too much in terms of the rest of the league for sort of interesting saves. One I would potentially flag up is St Johnstone. St Johnstone start in the Europa League on FM22. They won the Scottish Cup and Scottish League Cup double last season. In real life, they end up playing Galatasaray in the Europa League qualifying rounds. Unfortunately got beat, but they did give them a good going, to be honest. So again, that would be quite an interesting one to take. Again, another team who are going through a bit of transition. They've lost some of their key players, so again, a very interesting one to potentially take over. And then you've got your teams who are likely to be at the bottom of the table. You've got your Ross Counties, your Livingstons, your Dundees. Those are teams that might potentially struggle in the game, so again, those are kind of your more interesting challenges to make sure you stay up and build a team going forward. But we'll move on to the Championship. But I think if you want that type of challenge, you're better going a league down and having some more dynamic challenges on the game, should I say. So let's have a look at the Championship. So as we go down the leagues in Scotland, they reduce a little bit from Championship down. It's 10 per league, going down to League 2. So less teams, which ironically makes it a bit more competition. The Scottish Championship is very competitive. It's probably one of those leagues that I would highly recommend you managing, to be honest, throughout the whole game. I think there's a lot of different options here. So again, we'll kind of talk you through how the league works and what we're thinking. So this should get pretty straightforward from now on, because it works the same every league down. If you win the league, obviously you get promoted to the Premiership, okay? So that's only the person who finishes first. The next three, so from second to fourth, they are then entered into the playoff. So what happens there? Like most playoffs, third plays fourth, winner of that plays second, winner of that then goes on and plays the team who finished in the bottom half of the Scottish Premiership. So it's quite interesting to see what happens with that one. Again, especially with there only being 10 teams in the league, pretty much almost your top half are potentially looking at being promoted, so it does make a lot more of a competition within the league. So you can be in a playoff position one week and be looking at a relegation battle the next week, so it does make things really interesting. As with the Premiership, you finish bottom, you're relegated, you finish second bottom, you go into a playoff. Works exactly the same for the league below into League 1, and we'll get on to that, but yeah, that's what you're looking at. So as I said, it is quite competitive in the Scottish Championship. So your team that you're looking at as your sort of favourites in this league is Kilmarnock, and this is where I was talking about a challenge in terms of bringing a team up. So if you're looking for a challenge in like sort of the lower half of the Scottish Premiership, I would probably suggest dropping down and doing Kilmarnock. They're a fairly strong team, do you know what I mean? But they just had an unfortunate season last year. They got relegated, and that's them. They're favourites to win the league by a long shot, and they've got a decent team, to be honest. If you have a look at their team, you'll kind of see some interesting names from the players that have played in the top flight. So it's not a massive stretch for them to go straight back up and be challenging for top half in the Scottish Premiership. So again, interesting one there. Then it's quite close between other teams in the Championship. So you've got Dunfermline, who are a good team, decent sized stadium as well, so a lot of potential there. You then got Inverness, who again have a really strong team as well. Hamilton, who got relegated, again they have a decent team, to be honest, on the game. Nothing mad, to be honest, but they have an okay team. They've got Thistle. Thistle are always an interesting save for me. I always think they're one that I would recommend anyone who wanted to manage in Scotland. They're based in Glasgow. You know, you have the whole Glasgow Celtic divide, and they're kind of that team that just kind of is forgotten about. But they are a well supported team. Their fans are absolutely mad for it. So again, one to look out for as a potential save, I would say. You've then got kind of the smaller teams in the league. So you've got Wraith, Arbroath, Morton, Queen of the South. Their Ayr are just at the bottom of the ranking, but they are a decent team, to be honest. But again, I think they really peaked a few years ago when Lawrence Shanklin was up front for them, hammering goals. So again, they're one potentially is a bit of a challenge to see if you can beat their rivals Kilmarnock to qualification and get them up into the Scottish Premiership. So League One rules work exactly the same as the Championship, so don't need to really delve too much into that. You've got some interesting teams here, teams that really shouldn't be this low. Last season, obviously, Park Thistle were in this league and got promoted, so there's teams that really don't need to be here. Falkirk being the main one, and obviously they're favourites to win the league before anything's been done. So again, Falkirk, you probably have heard of Falkirk. If you're not 100% sure on Scottish football, you've probably still heard of them. They were in the Premier League years ago, and were a decent side, to be honest. They got to cup finals, all that sort of stuff. So again, the fact they're down there is quite worrying. In real life, they're struggling a wee bit, but Falkirk, top of the league in terms of chance to win it. So again, that's an interesting one to try and take them back up to the Premier League. If you look down, you've then got Alloa, Queen's Park, Airdrie, Montrose, Cove Rangers, Peterhead, Dumbarton, East Fife and Clyde. So I've rattled through them, but there are some interesting names to pick out. Queen's Park is always an interesting one for FM saves. They used to play at Hampden, that was their big thing. They owned Hampden, however it was recently sold. They're now redeveloping Lesser Hampden, so again I think that is an interesting team to kind of take over. And again, like Park Thistle, they're based in Glasgow. Can you make them a top Glasgow team? Interesting thing about them is they're now professional. They used to be amateur, which made things a little bit hard, but I think Queen's Park have a lot of potential in the game, so I think they're one that a lot of people might play as in Scotland. Cove Rangers is always going to be a big one. They are essentially the second team in Aberdeen, so they were in the Highland League not that long ago, and they've sort of just shot up. They were tipped for a potential promotion race at the start of the season last year, however it wasn't to be. So again, they're one that people are looking at as a team that can climb the ranks quite quickly. A lot of money has been invested in the team. Paul Hartley is the manager, and they've got some decent players on rank as well. So again, they are one to potentially look at as a save. Can you make them the big boys in Aberdeen? Can you take them up to the Premier League? Who knows? So then we have a look at League 2. So this is the lowest league you can play in Scotland on FM22 for now anyway. So again, this is probably where you're looking in terms of playing a save in Scotland if you want to have a long term kind of journeyman sort of build a team, road to glory sort of thing. So this league is very even, to be honest, a lot to play for, I would say, in terms of opportunities. If we have a look through the teams, what you're sort of playing with, Kelty Hearts favourites to win before anything's been done on the game. So Kelty Hearts got promoted from the Lowland League, which essentially is non-league in Scotland. This is their first season in top flight. They have a decent setup, and they look much like Cove Rangers in the way of being able to climb the ranks quite quickly. So they could be quite an interesting save to try and take them from League 2 up to the Premiership, and it would probably be an easier start than taking someone like Albion or Stranraer that we could look at down the line. Then got Forfar. Forfar were relegated from League 1 last season, so again they are sitting at the sort of top end of the rankings for who could potentially go up or down, so again that's one to look out for. You've then got Elgin City, a decent side. Edinburgh City for me are an interesting one. I think, you've got Hearts, you've got Hibs. Could they then come up and be the third Edinburgh team? Can they, make a big name for themselves and go forward? Another team that were previously in the Lowland League and are now doing pretty well for themselves. So Definitely an interesting save to look at there. But like I said, any save that you do with any team in the League 2 of Scottish football is going to be interesting, because you're trying to get them from that bottom level up to the top. And as far as I'm aware, all of these teams are semi-pro, so again, that makes things all the more challenging, because you need a decent amount of financial backing before you go professional as you're climbing the leagues, and there's not really much money in Scottish football, which you'll come to find out. So again, very interesting challenges if you're going from, you know, Road to Glory style League 2 up to the Premiership. So as you can see, if you have a look at the actual Scotland page, it gives you the competitions here and the rankings. So again, Premiership is ranked 11th in the world, just behind him the Austrian Premier League and the Ukrainian Premier League. So again, not massively behind the rest of the world. The Championship, however, is a sort of a bigger drop, and you're down looking at, you know, Greek Super League 2, 3 Liga, that sort of level. So again, that can be quite interesting. It's also a good thing to think of when you're making your first signings in the Championship, is looking at leagues that are around that level, if you've got them loaded up, and looking at, right, so who's a good player in this league, and go with that. League 1 is right down at 92. You're sort of just below the Vanarama National League, so that's the sort of players you're potentially looking at signing. And League 2 is right down. You are just around French National 3. Yeah, that's sort of where you're sitting with that. There's 125th in the world, so that is a very low reputation league. Again, hard to get out of there. So again, that's sort of what you're looking at when it comes to Scottish football. So there we have it, a kind of brief look at Scotland, how it works, how the league structure works, sort of potential teams you could look at managing. Hopefully you found that useful and interesting. If there's anything else you'd like me to do in regards to Scottish football and FM, or anything else in regards to FM, let me know down below with a comment. You've noticed I've not went into a lot of detail in regards to actual players and who plays within the Scottish leagues. That is something that will be potentially coming in terms of who to sign, who to look at coming forward. So if that's something you're interested in, hit the like button and let me know, and subscribe for more. Again, thank you guys all for watching. I really appreciate anyone that stuck around, and hopefully you've learned something new. If not, hopefully I've entertained you a wee bit. Guys, I will see you next time. Peace.